This is the Body Talks with Vera, where we dive deep into movement, strength, and joy at every size. I'm Vera, your host, and each episode, we're having real conversations with people who are redefining fitness, confidence, and what it means to truly live in our bodies. Whether we're talking powerlifting, nutrition, running ultra marathons, or radical self love, this is a space where every body has a story. So let's get into it today. We have Krysti Beckett. She is a passionate plus size personal trainer and body confidence coach with 18 years in the fitness industry. Over the last 6 years, she has honed her expertise in women's core and pelvic health and C-section recovery. Her goal is to get moms to move with confidence and build strength at any size. Krysti currently resides in Burford, Ontario, with her husband, three children, and beloved dog, Ozzy. Welcome, Krysti.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so happy you are here. I'd love to just get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what brought you into fitness, and eventually into pelvic health?
So I grew up as like kind of stereotypical fat kid, to be honest. Like fitness was not fun for me. It was like exercise is a punishment. It's what you do to be skinny, which I never was, never ever. And at some point, I actually was a nanny for someone who was in the fitness industry. She was running a company in St. Catharines called Fit Together, where she served, ironically now, postpartum moms. And she invited me. She's like, you have like the kind of personality I need for an assistant. Would you help me with admin? Well, that turned into becoming certified as a Wee Wigglers instructor. It's now called Go Bop, and which is like a toddler movement and music program. But through that, I felt just so empowered that I was able to get people moving, and I was educating myself in fitness and also working in another gym called Fitness Alive, where I kind of saw bodies of all sizes and shapes and had a very different image. So I went to Niagara College, took the fitness and health promotion program, became a PT, personal trainer. And I taught Zumba, I taught, strength classes, boot camp, all sorts of things. But then when I had kids, my body started doing things like leaking when I sneezed or jumped. And I had a tremendous amount of low back pain, not just sciatica, but something called SI joint pain. And also pain from sex, which sucks.
Yeah.
And like no one was talking about it.
Mm.
So I started to learn from a pelvic physiotherapist. And then I found out I could be certified in this and I could help other women through their fitness, because at the end of the day, physiotherapy is great to diagnose your pain and your issues, but it's not a lifestyle. They give you the exercises and stretches to kind of fix the problem. But if you don't strength train and do your mobility work, your flexibility work, if you don't make time to rest, all these key things in your life, it's not sustainable. It's going to come back.
Yeah.
So that's where I found the core confidence course. So I am now a pelvic fitness specialist. And then after my third C-section, I met a professional called Jeanette Yee, and I learned how to help moms after C-sections after doing my own rehabilitation and absolutely changing my health. So, wow, that's a long story. But also, like, it's probably missing a whole bunch of pieces. I think there's so many things that we find in our own bodies challenges with. Sometimes there's answers, but a lot of time, especially for women, there just aren't. And I feel like I kept looking for those answers along the
Mm.
way.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And that's actually kind of how we first connected was through Jeanette at a fitness conference we were both at. Like, you were helping Jeanette out and I was just kind of sitting and listening. And I don't know much about C-sections. I have never given birth. So to just learn about it just from even just that tiny little like conference workshop, I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize how much I didn't know and how much so many people do not know about childbirth, but C-sections definitely it's incredibly wild to think that, there's so much information that so many of us are missing out on when so many of us do go through childbirth.
Mhm, mhm. Well, and just even postpartum rehabilitation for any birth, whether it's a vaginal or a cesarean, there are absolutely $0 in our healthcare system giving women rehabilitation
Mm,
for these things, and it's incredibly common. And on top of that, any abdominal surgery, so I mean, it's a little different for hernias, but women, even if they haven't given birth, may experience a myomectomy where they remove polyps or cysts, or they may experience a hysterectomy. And it's the same thing. Although it could be laparoscopic, often it is major abdominal surgery. And again, no prescribed rehabilitation. We just, separate their abs, cut through multiple layers of tissue, but then we don't give them any help after.
yeah.
And it's a major gap in our healthcare system.
Definitely. So we're definitely going to get into that. I'd love to know from the fitness industry kind of side of things, what is
Hmm.
something that you've been finding that the fitness industry has been getting very wrong about mom's movement and postpartum strength?
Mhm. I would say number one is, and I'm seeing a shift, but maybe it's because of the people I follow,
Mm,
the algorithm, but there definitely still are lots of influencers, a lot of male ones, quite frankly, that have the whole get your body back mentality, like the
yeah,
bounce back. You should look like you never had a child. Not taking into account any like complications that you may have dealt with, your personal health history, your genetics. Add on to that that we are not one-dimensional people.
yeah,
There is a biopsychosocial effect. Moms and women in general, we also have our mental and emotional health to deal with.
yeah,
So if you're talking to a woman who's in postpartum who may or may not be dealing with postpartum depression, often goes undiagnosed, but almost every single mom I've ever talked to postpartum is sleep deprived.
mm,
I'm not sure how we are expected to master taking care of ourselves when we don't have the time or the energy or the cognitive ability
mm,
in that extreme situation. So I'd say those are the two biggest ones. Number one being that expectation to bounce back. And then two, the expectation that everybody's got their stuff together, that they
yeah.
just know and are able to do it.
Yeah, it makes me immediately think of, that saying of like everyone has the same hours in a day, which is not true because we have to
No.
think, billionaires and millionaires who can hire help out. So we do not have the same hours in a day. And we
No.
know how important rest is for our bodies, like, mental and physical. And if we're not getting that, of course, our bodies are gonna deteriorate and not in it mean a negative way, but like literally because we're not getting enough sleep, our bodies are going to react differently than if we were getting enough sleep. So that's,
100%. Well,
yeah.
add to that stress,
Mhm.
right?
Sure.
Cortisol is the stress hormone, which people don't know is also a fat storing hormone. And
Mm,
if you have irregular sleep, you cannot regulate your cortisol. And so that's often where postpartum moms get down on themselves for not being able to release any extra weight, which we also know that's not an indicator of health, but yet our culture views it that way. So we have a lot of moms that have this mindset and they get so down on themselves for how they look. But I actually think they get down on themselves on how they look because of how they actually feel. If
yeah,
you're exhausted and you don't have time for yourself, and then add to that you have to go out and nothing fits right.
yeah.
And you look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself. Like that mental health and physical health, they are working together, but not in a good way.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh. So, talking about fitness and stuff, I'd love to know, what are some common myths you're hearing, not specifically in the fitness industry, but like just maybe from even clients or people in the community or just random strangers that people are hearing about core strength and recovery, and especially when it comes after childbirth or C-sections.
Yeah. Most people don't know that your core is not your abs.
Mhm. Yeah.
You have so many muscles in your body. They work in groups and pairs. No muscle works entirely by itself. And so when people see the stereotypical six pack, they think core. But that, your rectus abdominis, is actually an external muscle. It's an abdominal muscle. You have deep muscles that form, if you can imagine, like a Pringles canister, for example. So your top is the diaphragm, which is your breathing muscle right under your lungs. The bottom is the pelvic floor. So think of it like a house, even like you got a roof and a floor. And then the walls are the deepest transversus abdominis and multifidus, which like fans like a Christmas tree down your spine. Those are what are responsible for things like intra-abdominal pressure and your ability to balance. And they also are really dependent on your breathing. So when you think of, core and the ability to hold up your spine and your trunk, you really need those muscles, not those external abdominals that you see.
Yeah. It's the common thing. It's like, oh, I always hear, bring your belly button up to your spine to engage your core. Like, that's not how, like, we want to focus on things like breathing to help. And
Mhm.
that even ties back to that stress that especially a lot of moms are dealing with, especially new moms, where, when we're stressed, we're not breathing in a normal pattern usually. We're usually breathing through our neck versus our actual diaphragm. So we're not engaging those muscles as we normally will, which can also create some issues too.
Yeah, and even thinking about what habits we have when we are stressed. So for me, if I am anxious, I feel it in my chest and I forget to breathe. I feel pressure in my chest. Some people are breath holders, some people are jaw clenchers,
Mhm.
which that fascia that runs from your jaw goes all the way down your spine into your pelvic floor. So most women or people in general who clench their jaw also have tight pelvic floors, which is not what
Yeah.
you want. So there are, like you said, like not using your breath to release and relax muscles, especially long term, it's like a ripple effect through other systems in your body.
Definitely. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the pelvic floor because, I think a lot of us just assume like Kegels and that's all we need to do ever,
Right.
right? So I guess could we maybe, you know, demystify what the pelvic floor is? And for people who have never thought about their pelvic floor before, like what's something they can do to kind of start even just realizing it's there?
Oh, okay. I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll keep it short. Actually, I can wrap it up into two in one. For those that are listening, I want you to imagine that your pelvis is a basket. And so your pelvis is actually two bones. There is no pubic bone, although some people refer to that joint as a pubic bone in the front. And then in the back, those two pelvic bones connect to the spine right there at the bottom, like L5 sacrum area. And so in there is a system of muscles, a basket within that bone structure, and that controls your flow of urine, that controls release of fecal matter, that also has sexual function and holds in your organs. So when we think of Kegels, Kegels are the strengthening exercise. That is what makes the muscles shorten and tighten and strong. However, we also know we cannot have strength. We cannot have functioning muscles without full release, meaning they're able to stretch as well. So Kegels are the strength part. But just like the rest of fitness, if you don't rest and release, they're not going to like optimally perform. So the opposite of Kegels, the opposite of strength for your release is your breath. The key thing I think anyone can do if they're like totally new to the idea of pelvic floor is get intimate with your own body. Start to find out where things are. Take a mirror and look at your vulva. Look at your body parts. And believe me, we are all different. But this is a great way for you to kind of not only see what is there, but to also make that brain body connection and give yourself some self love, because your pelvic floor, which is the internal muscle system, and your external pelvic area, your vulva, do so much to carry you through your health every single day.
Oh my gosh, definitely. Like, and I think that's so important. Like, I think of a lot of people who have a lot of either shame, guilt, or fear around that area of their body for, whatever reason that may be. But to just kind of give it a little love. And I think, yeah, like, I think of the proprioception of kind of connecting that mind body awareness. For me, it's like, okay, well, we're thinking of our glutes engaging. And,
Right.
sometimes that is poking our butt and feeling that muscle contract. Maybe it is just, in this case, feeling around your pelvis area to realize, like, okay, these are kind of where these muscles are, or this is how it feels when I do this kind of thing. And it's also a good way to recognize if you're maybe feeling discomfort or pain in your body, to just, again, that recognition or recognition that, something's happening in your body and you can physically notice it in that way of kind of connecting, mind body in that way.
Yeah. I think it is worthy to note that a lot of people, a lot of women have had sexual trauma or body shaming, sexual shaming. I grew up in a Christian church that did not talk positively about sex unless it was within marriage. And even then, it wasn't woman positive. We never talked about things like pleasure. We never talked about what to do, you know, thinking back to high school, education was 100% about how not to get pregnant.
Yeah.
But the reality is 85% of women will become pregnant and give birth in their lives. And 100% of women will experience things like menopause. Like, we will experience changes in our bodies and in our pelvic floors throughout our lives. And so we have a lot of shame because it wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
You know, the word vagina is not a bad word. It is not a dirty word. It is literally an anatomical
Yeah.
word. So I can understand that hesitancy for not wanting to look or touch or talk about it. But I think that's the first step to that confidence,
Yeah.
is taking action by either looking, touching, talking about it.
Exactly. And that's when, I think of, just understanding how your body works in that way. And yeah, like in school, we're not taught about that. We're not even told like the names of things until like later in high school. And,
Yeah.
we're just kind of left in the dark for so much. Like I think even, kids in my class would be upset and crying because they got their period and they didn't understand it because,
Oh, yeah.
you taught about it. So I think of situations like that. And I think, yeah, like, I think a lot of different systems in this world got to a lot better for female healthcare. But I'm so happy there's people like you out there who are, promoting this education and sharing it with your clients. Because I think, there's a lot of us can be doing just to even recognize, how our bodies are acting and how we can best support our bodies in multiple ways.
Well, and even to what you said about what we could or should be doing, I think there is a lot of pressure on us, and we do it to ourselves as well, where we're like, I could be XYZ. I mean, I'll be fully honest. I could be, or I would even say to myself, should be doing 2 hours of movement every day. I would feel so much better if I did. Is that an actual sustainable reality? No. No, it isn't. And I would never put that on a client either. Are there athletes and superstars who literally spend 2 to 3 hours in the gym every single day taking care of themselves? Yeah. And like you said, they're millionaires. They have nannies for each of their children. They have someone cooking their food and doing their laundry. So we have to give ourselves a lot of grace and
Mhm.
work within the resources we have. And we
Yeah.
don't all have the same resources. We don't all have the same time. We don't all have the same genetics about what our body can or cannot do. There are certain ways my body does not bend, as opposed to, say, the 140-pound yogi, right? And we
Yeah.
also train differently, right? Like there's
Yeah.
so many differences. So to say that we could or should be doing something could negatively affect us in our brains and in our mental health. So yeah, to that I say give yourself some grace and work within the resources you have.
Definitely. I definitely agree. I think that's super important. I'd love to kind of shift, back to something you brought up was the get your body back kind of mentality that, again, it's often men who bring that to the table, which, like, gross. But, there are, of course, other people who bring that forward too, which is not the greatest. But, that is something that is very instilled in our society. And I think a lot of moms have that ingrained in them. And I know, like, from talking to other moms, like, the ads are usually all about
Yeah.
that, or like, snap back to your old body or do this, do that. And, it's harmful, but it does get ingrained into us and kind of really, I don't remember the word I'm looking for here, but yeah, ingrained, I guess, is what the word I'm going to go with. But I would ask you, what would you say to someone who feels like their body is too far gone to build strength?
Funny enough, I hear this more from older women. I hear
Mm,
this more from women over 50. And to be honest, that's actually more than half of my clientele. It's older women, older moms who are in a stage of life where they're not as responsible time-wise or financially for their children. So they're finally investing in themselves because they're also seeing that post-menopause, they're losing their strength because we know that muscle starts to decline once the estrogen drops. And I would say it's never, ever too late to take care of yourself. And I do see at that age less of a focus on what they feel like and more of a focus on what they're able to do. Because most women in their 20s and 30s in that time frame are able, and they may have, like, creaks and pains a little bit, but in general, they can get down on the floor and back up again. They
right.
can sit on the toilet and get back up again. They can go up and down the stairs. They might be winded because they have no cardio, but they're still able. But there comes a time where people literally aren't using it, so they're losing it, and they start to panic about what are the next 30 to 50 years going to look like if this is how they're feeling
Yeah.
50 years old. So again, I say it's never, ever too late.
Yeah.
Is it easier to develop those habits far in advance? Sure. But what's even like if you don't have that, the next best step is start now.
Exactly. Yeah. I cannot stress that enough. Like, not only, of course, like, my thing is saying going at your own pace, but
Mhm.
going whenever you feel good to. Because, maybe that wasn't when you were in your 20s or 30s, but, now when you're later in life, 50s, even 60s, 70s, and you're like, oh, shoot, like, I'm losing this strength, I'm losing mobility, but I want to stay independent. Okay, well, let's start building that up now. Like, I don't care what age you are. It's as long as you're trying to do small steps towards, keeping your mobility, keeping your strength, or gaining it back, right? And it doesn't have to be like full hour-long workouts, it can be
Yeah.
small steps you can do, like, throughout the day even, that, maybe equal 15 minutes in the end. But you can just do, 1 minute here, 30 seconds there, and just slowly add on as it feels good in your body too, for sure.
Yeah, I love that approach because at the end of the day, if you are working to exhaustion, if you are working into pain, if you are not responding to your body's limit, you've lost trust with each other.
Yeah,
Your
definitely.
body needs care. And while you are 100% in control of how you move and what you do, there does come a limit. You and I have both experienced severe pain, debilitating pain, where we're no longer in control and we have no choice but to respect what our body needs, follow that path. So that I think that's another encouragement. Just like you said, move when you feel good, move in a way that feels good for you, because that's how your body is going to learn to trust you. And that's how you are going to trust it. And you have that beautiful relationship to keep you in a great base.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's so important, especially when, like you say, losing trust in your body because you're pushing into pain, you're overexerting yourself. I feel like that's also when you start to really resist and you're like, okay, you know what? I don't want to do this because it causes me pain. I've been injured before. I don't like how this feels. And then you're going to resent it and you're not going to do it. And then, yeah, then you're going to lose it, literally. And so, yeah, it's finding that place where it feels good, where you're not pushing too far. You are getting like maybe a little exerted, a little sweaty, but not to the point of, I am out of breath. I need like an oxygen mask right now. I am hurting myself. You are really tuning into your body and listening. And I think for people who maybe haven't reached that yet, where they don't feel like they can trust their body for whatever reason, then it's those tiny, small steps where it feels like it may not even be doing anything. That's fine. We're going to do those tiny steps and we're going to build onto it. We're not just going to go 0 to 100 right away. We're going to go to 0 to 10. And then maybe the next day we'll do 11 if we're feeling good. Maybe 15 another day. Like we go slow with it to build that trust.
Yeah. We have a very similar approach in that. It's funny how like somebody will come to one of my in-person classes and they'll be like, after we're done, like, that was challenging, but like, I feel good. I didn't feel like I was dying. And they're like shocked that that's what
Yeah.
fitness can feel like.
Yeah, and it's almost sad to me that people feel that way because I know we've both been there where we've been to fitness classes when we were younger, especially as the fat kids, where it's like we were told like this is supposed to be punishment, and that's ingrained. So many of us believe that even still. So when they come to a class where they're like, oh, it was a challenge, but I'm feeling good. But why aren't I in pain? Like it's almost like you can see that mindset shift is starting to form, which we love to see. I love, love, love when I get to see that. But it just is disheartening at the same time to know like that's such a lived experience for so many of us, and so many of us haven't gotten there yet. And I just keep encouraging people, find that little bit of movement, find that movement that is joyful to you, whatever it may be, just so you can get there where you don't see that fitness is punishment, because it's not. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about how you can help your clients redefine strength beyond aesthetics and numbers, because like we said, like it's not about how our body looks. It's not about getting your body back. It's about getting stronger and feeling good in your body from a mental standpoint, and just knowing, I can get up and down off the ground. I can take the stairs. I can lift my kids up if I want to. I can also reach that top shelf that's sometimes hard to reach. Like, how do you help clients kind of redefine what strength is?
Yeah. So first I do validate that it is their body and they are totally allowed to, want to look a certain way or want to shape their body. But I also present them with the very realistic evidence-based information that says, weight loss and diets are harmful. They are it's disordered eating is what it is, to be frank. And so most of them not sustainable, and I won't support that. I mean, I'll still support them. I will help them with strength training, but I will not be giving meal plans. I will not be talking you into, you know, a deficit to lose weight or things like that. But sometimes what strength training does is it gives us confidence. Actually, we shouldn't even say sometimes. I think 100% of the time, strength training gives us confidence. And so we no longer focus on the size of our waist or the shape of our legs because we feel better in our skin. And that radiates into everything that we do, including how we stand. Like you mentioned this week in social about posture. Posture doesn't actually really exist. I mean, we do want alignment in our spine for optimal function so that we have, you know, less pain and better movement and things like that. But you will notice that when people feel secure in their bodies and they feel confident, they do stand a little straighter.
Yeah.
They do open up their chest and then like want to talk openly. They don't hide themselves. to your point of they can lift their kids, they can do things without pain. Like, go ahead and talk to a grandparent and ask them how they feel about getting down on the floor to play with grandkids and getting back up again. There
Yeah.
are so many people that crave that ability, and that comes from strength. I talked to someone today who said, I'm wondering if my grandma should come to your classes because she's having trouble standing up by herself. I'm like, heck yes. Heck yes, she should be strength training because that will be much easier for her to stand up again after sitting. And
Yeah.
there are things that we take for granted. I mean, I'm turning 40 this year. I don't consider myself old, but there are things that, maybe I did 20 years ago that I don't do now. That not that I couldn't, but like I'm not used to my body moving that way. Zumba is one. I used to teach Zumba. Do my feet move that quickly? No. Could I challenge myself and train myself to do that again? Yeah, I think I could. So
Yeah.
having that mindset too of, if I took the time, if I made the time to take care of myself, what am I capable of doing? And how that ripple effect of that brain body connection. Again, if I think I can, if I think in that direction, if I move my body, they will work together and I could just feel a whole heck of a lot better.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I think, that's something that's overlooked is how often we're using strength in our bodies that could literally do almost everything, if not everything.
Yeah.
And I think of it in the case of, yeah, like when we're going older, yeah, like you said, like grandparents getting to the ground to play with their grandkids. I think of, yeah, like we want to keep our independence as long as we can. And the way to do that is through strength, mobility, cardio, like working on our fitness. And also, of course, I would also include our mental health into that as well. But we really need to focus on those kind of things to keep ourselves staying active, to be able to do what we want to do in our lives for as long as we are able to, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit because, we just mentioned that. But what are some small wins that you can celebrate with your clients that, or sorry, let me rephrase it. What are some small wins you celebrate with your clients that you think that others might be overlooking?
Mm. So, on your worst day, when you feel like nothing's going right, maybe it's a full schedule and you don't have time for yourself, or you are overwhelmed emotionally, maybe grief, maybe stress. I tell my clients not to focus so much on their fitness because their capacity is shifted and to focus more on what they can do. So less on what you can't do, more on what you can do. So sometimes that's just a matter of, if you're a journaler, put it in your journal. If you're not, just grab a piece of paper or your app and write down what you did.
Mm,
I got up out of bed, count.
yeah.
I put on a clean shirt, count. I fed myself. I fed my kid. I
Yeah.
put gas in the tank. You know what I mean? Like, these things are all things we take for granted, but not everyone's able to do these things.
Mhm.
And giving ourselves that mindset shift to remember of what we can do. Because another thing is that I've really realized the last year is that aging is a privilege.
Mhm. Yeah.
Literally any age is a privilege. And so I don't want to bring in some toxic positivity, but be grateful for everything you have and find the silver lining, but more so just to bring yourself back into a place where things are going well can make all the difference and help you move forward. I had a client this week. So she's been with me for 6 weeks and she started hot and heavy. And our first 5 weeks were honestly almost perfect habit wise. Like, we're talking between 5 and 7 days of movement every day for 5 weeks. She was going, going, going. And then this week, she knew at the beginning of the week, it was going to be a harder week. Her husband was working extra days. She was out of town 2 days. And so this was the first week where she only did 2 days of movement. And only one of them was a workout with me. And she was so down on herself. And she said, this is what I was afraid of,
Mm.
because this is my previous pattern that I would go hot and heavy for so long, and then I would get derailed and I would fall off. To which I reminded her, I'm really glad this happened when you're working with me, because I get to see it and I get to help you get.
Yeah.
So that I would say it doesn't sound like a win to fall off. It doesn't sound like a win at all, but it is, because the mindset shift becomes not a road. Falling off is not a dead end. It's not the end of your journey. Think of it more as a speed bump.
Mm.
It slows you down and you get to keep going.
Yes. And I think, that speed bump is a great thing to kind of help us readjust what we need to. We can see, okay, maybe we were going on, like, when it's going really good, really great, we can do all these workouts. We can do all the things. But then, okay, that speed bump comes. What can we adjust to still do our best, however that may look at that time, right? It's taking our kind of staying almost realistic to very specific situations, because our lives are always ebbs and flows. And I love that you will, like, cheer on those people who are just doing, what may feel for some people like the bare minimum, but can take a lot of energy, like things like even just getting out of bed, taking a shower, feeding the kids. It makes me think of the app I use, the Finch app, not affiliated with them at all. I just really love it, where you do get to like check off little things you can do, like, and there's like a little SOS bag where it's just things like you existed today. And that is
Mhm.
a great thing to say you can do, that, maybe I didn't get out of bed today. Maybe it was a really hard day, but I existed. Maybe I took a couple of deep breaths. I focused in a little bit when I could. It's those small things, and to celebrate it, I think that's really, really important. So that's all great. So I'd love to talk, because you're a mom of 3, and I'd love to know, how has motherhood shaped your understanding of movement and body care?
Well, certainly shifted from a perspective. Like I said, I think there was a lot of thinking as a young person, fitness was to be skinny.
Right.
Fitness was forced upon me. It's not something that I chose. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. But I think one of my first big realizations postpartum was, my first pregnancy was a breeze. The second pregnancy, I had a lot of pain and I was chasing a toddler, so I was exhausted. And so it no longer was a choice. I had to take care of myself because of the safety of my toddler. We had an unfenced yard and we weren't on a busy road, but within 30 seconds, if he really wanted to, he could run in the direction of an 80-kilometer-an-hour road.
Mhm.
And it no longer became this is for me. So I would say that kind of where I started to really invest in myself for strength training and pelvic floor. And now that I'm out of that postpartum, I mean, once postpartum, always postpartum, to be honest, but once
Mhm.
I'm out of kind of that fog of like the new baby life, now it's more about showing them what it means to love your body and take care of yourself. And I feel like I'm getting weak. Wow, you asked a deep question. Just this week, I asked my 7-year-old, I said, do you like your body? She said, "Yeah." I'm like, okay, cool. What makes your body feel the best? And she said acro, which is like acrobatic
Yeah.
dancing. She loves to do it. And she's so impressive, by the way. I've never been able to do like handstands or cartwheels. And she just, oh, she's amazing. And I said, what makes you feel super powerful? And she says, when I put on the song Unstoppable. I was like, oh my gosh, who am I raising? Like, I wanted
Wow.
to take credit. And I'm like, part of it is me, but also I'm like, I'm so glad that I am in that space of taking care of myself, that she sees it she is doing it herself. And I don't do acro. I don't, my kids can weight train with me if they want. They've got their little kid weights if they want to. And
Yeah.
sometimes they, but truthfully, we own a scale, but we don't use it. We only use it if like the kids need medication. She has no concept of her weight. She has no concept of, not liking your body, which is
Yeah.
so powerful to me. And I wish every woman knew that. And I wish every daughter knew that. And I mean, it's important for my son too. Don't get me wrong. It is.
Yeah.
But I think generally our culture targets women, objectifies bodies. And I really, really don't want that for my girls or any of our girls.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, just the idea of, I think of when I was a child myself, like the idea of not having a concept of weight, to not
Mhm.
know what having bad body image is like, especially as a 7-year-old, like I oh my gosh, I would wish the whole world to feel something like that, because I think that's so powerful, because yeah, that bad body image may come eventually, and but it's later in life, at least you have time to just kind of enjoy being a child, where you're not worrying about the size of your body when you are a literal child. I think that's so important. I think that's so beautiful and so great. So my next question actually really touches on that, and you already did kind of answer it, but I'd love to know if you wanted to expand a bit. But what do you hope your kids learn from watching the work you do?
Oh, okay, more tears. I hope they learn to love themselves even when things are super duper hard.
Mm,
We're really good at criticizing ourselves. We're really good at looking at our bodies and finding faults, and we have been so conditioned to do that. I mean, how many tabloids at the supermarket did I see growing up where they'd like zoom in on somebody's cellulite while they're on vacation with their family, right? Like absolutely toxic
yeah.
behavior.
Hmm.
Um, so I would really love if, you know, they would just learn that they are valuable no matter what, no matter how their body looks or weighs or even how it functions, because I think we do that to ourselves too. Certainly when I've had debilitating pain, my mental health tanks like almost immediately because I'm like, I'm worthless. I can't do anything. And then I tie my worth to my abilities.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So that's something that I'm working on. Therapy is
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
Love
so
therapy.
I try to talk to them about that too. And so I really hope that that's what they gain as well, is just knowing that they are worthy,
Yeah.
that they're valuable no matter what.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I really hope all children get to experience that, like to know that, their body size and their ability is in no way tied to their worthiness as a human being. Cause I think that's so important. But well, let's shift away from that little emotional topic a bit.
Yeah.
What is one core or pelvic health move you wish that everyone knew about and potentially did daily?
Whoa. The very foundational piece is the core breath.
Mhm.
So actually, let's walk through it right now because this would be valuable even to the person listening, even if they're driving, they can do this.
Right.
And that is simply to inhale into your belly as if there's an umbrella expanding. So just gently inhale and then exhale through pursed lips as if you're blowing through a straw. There's no pressure, there's no force. Inhale, expand the belly. Exhale through pursed lips as if you're blowing through a straw. And we're going to do that again. Now we're going to add that pelvic contraction. So inhale, relax the belly. And as you exhale through those pursed lips, you're going to imagine that you're using your vagina to draw a blueberry. You're picking up a blueberry with your vagina. Inhale, release the blueberry, expand the belly. Exhale, draw in that blueberry. We'll do one more. Inhale, release, relax. Exhale, draw in, blueberry. So I'm going to just walk you through why this is important for your core and pelvic health. One is your breath is what relaxes your pelvic floor. It also is what relaxes and is so vital to your nervous system. And your pelvic health, in fact, all of your physical health, is directly tied to your nervous system. The more stressed you are, the more tense you are, the more issues you likely will have. And vice versa. If you were totally relaxed and didn't have strength, that's going to impact you as well, right? So you need a combination of the two. Drawing up the blueberry is a funny one, and people never look at blueberries the same way again after. But the reason we use blueberry is that when we want to engage the pelvic floor, we're not looking for a maximum contraction. We're not looking to crush walls here. I think a lot of people have that mindset. You talked at the beginning of just doing Kegels. Well, if you only do strength and you don't rest, if you don't relax, you don't have optimal muscle power. You should be able to contract and release. And so when we pick up that blueberry, we're only going about 30 to 50% of that contraction. Think about picking up a blueberry from a container. If you gave it a max squeeze, it would squirt everywhere. You would have annihilated that blueberry and it's dust. We don't want that. We want to just gently pick it up and put it back down. That is how much pressure you want to use when doing your pelvic floor contraction.
Well, that is so great. And I love that we just did that little exercise. Like I feel it through my body, even just, for me, anytime taking a nice deep breath feels so nice. So thank you so much for that. And honestly, Krysti, thank you so much for joining me today. If people want to learn more about you, work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah. So my company is called The Confident Mama. So my website is theconfidentmama.ca. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, although I would say the majority of me is Instagram. So the.confident.mama.
Amazing. Of course, I will have all that lovely stuff linked in the show notes. I have one final question for you. If someone is having a tough day with their body, whether from pain, frustration, even self-doubt, what is something that they can say to themselves to bring some kindness into their lives?
I am enough. I do enough. And my best is good enough.
Okay. So I am enough. I do enough. And
my best is good enough.
My best is good enough. There we go. Wow, amazing. I love that. Thank you again so much, Krysti, for joining me in this lovely conversation on the Body Talks. And thank you to those tuning in. Remember to drink some water, do something kind for your body today, and I will catch you on the next one.